RestartSMEs by the project partner Engineering and Technology Industries Association of Lithuania, Limpra, in collaboration with Eurecat. My name is Orijana Mašalė, and I will be a moderator of today's event. And I would be very glad if you could turn your cameras on. It's so good to see some human faces, even while talking on robotics. Thank you, Jesús, Gražina, Dalius, Lucas, Ramūnas. Thank you for the first ones. It's so good to see faces. So manufacturing SMEs were invited to this international workshop to discuss technological challenges and solutions in the field of robotics. But as I saw from the list of participants, we do have a very different audience today. People coming from manufacturing, from consulting, service business, and academia as well. So that means that robotics is really hot topic in many fields, and that shows us and that gives us hope that today we are going to have a very interesting discussion, as we will have very different perspectives and attitudes. Today we are going to have three key parts of event. First of all, Limpra project manager Gražina Žadalavičienė will introduce the whole project, to understand the scope, to understand the sphere we are in, and to understand what's going on in the future regarding this RestartSMEs project. Then we will hear Jesús González, who is in Barcelona, close to Barcelona now, and Jesús is going to be our keynote speaker today. And he is Technology Transfer Manager in Robotics at Eurecat. And Jesús will talk about human-centric cognitive robotics for the workplace in the future. That sounds really interesting. That sounds very exciting. And I believe that Jesús is going to make a very interesting presentation, as we had a small talk before. And the third part of the event is dedicated to discussion. And that's why I'm so happy to see very different people joining us together from different countries with different professional backgrounds, from different interests and different topics you are going to ask Jesús and each other, of course. But before we're giving the floor to Gražina and Jesús, there are some technical issues in case you didn't see the first slide, which was on while entering this webinar. So there is recording of the webinar, so please be polite and please behave. And that's in case that some people would like to share presentation, and some people who were not able to attend today's meeting could see the recording of the event. So you could have event as well as you are going to get presentations of Gražina and Jesús. So no need to make print screens, no need to make notes. Everything will be in your emails and could be used when you are willing to do that. During the presentations, you could write your questions down in the chat box. That's pretty ordinary thing. During pandemic lent us that. So be ready to write whatever comes to your mind any time of the event. During discussion part, you are welcome to turn on your cameras, your mics, and to participate in discussion. And I hope you are going to be very, very active audience. So that's mainly all technical issues we should mention before the event starts. And let it start. So Gražina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Orijana. Good day to everyone. And I would like to start with a presentation of RestartSMEs Project, which is the reason why we are having this international seminar and workshop on robotics of the future. So first of all, what is the RestartSMEs initiative about? The RestartSMEs is an initiative promoted by the European Commission, which was dedicated to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic and thus economic downturn. It is oriented to build resilience of manufacturing SMEs. But as we now see, the resilience of manufacturing SMEs is even more important because we now face even, I would say, worse and challenging circumstances as regards the political issues and war in the neighboring country. So if shortly, what is the goal of the project? We are not only looking to help companies in their digitalization process, to train them, but also to help them find technology providers that could help them to solve the challenges. What does RestartSMEs offer to the ecosystem? So we do offer, together with our international partnership with partners coming from other European countries, we offer an assessment of digital transformation readiness, a customized, tailor-made digitalization plan for SMEs in transition, upskilling and reskilling of workforce, which is essential in their way to digitalization. We will also arrange matchmaking between traditional SMEs and their digital transformation providers, tech-savvy companies. We will also offer access to new clients, markets for technology providers. And we also are looking and seeking to develop a thriving community of like-minded entrepreneurs and supportive partners. So all the traditional manufacturing SMEs are very much invited to take part in all the activities of RestartSMEs project. The way looks like here that you see in the screen. So we invite companies to go through the assessment of digital transformation readiness. We have this tool online, so it is very easy, and it is translated as well in Lithuanian language. I'm addressing the Lithuanian companies. It is also in English and some other European languages. Thus, having filled in this digital maturity assessment tool, you will receive an explanation, a short 1 or 2 pages description of what is the situation of your company and where you should invest more time and resources to go further. Thus, you become and join the online community, which will be composed of other manufacturing companies and tech providers. Then you will receive a customized technology adoption roadmap. We will also organize matchmaking events with companies that have challenges and the ones who have solutions to their challenges. So in Lithuania, in the end of October, we are going to have a hackathon dedicated for this purpose. Then we will also have in this project various seminars, workshops like this on various thematic topics, and trainings, which will be dedicated to train and upskill employees of the manufacturing companies. And finally, the companies who participate in the program will get a business coaching. So this is really a very colorful and beneficial program, and it is for free. It includes international experts. Therefore, I very much invite you to participate there. And we are, of course, can be found on the internet sites. They will be shared with all the participants after the seminar. So shortly, this is it. And please join RestartSMEs.
Thank you, Gražina. And I would like to pay attention that Kvile from Limpra just wrote a link to this self-evaluation, what's the word for that, questionnaire, should I put it that way? So feel free to open it anytime, and feel free to use it for improvement of work of your company. So thank you, Gražina, and we will definitely come back to this general project description during discussion part. And now we will move to Barcelona, and Jesús, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Orijana. I'm going to take the chance to share my screen with you as well. Okay, so it should be.
It's all perfect.
Yeah, okay,
Thank
good.
You.
Well, Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Grazina and Limpra team for inviting me to give that keynote talk. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be here today to share my expertise and my experience with you so that hopefully you can get some insights from my story and my current activity. I have to say that I didn't know Limpra before. I get in contact with Limpra and Grazina through my colleagues at Eurecat, that they are participating in this project. It was very nice to get to know all Limpra's community and network of companies. Actually, we already identified some opportunities for collaboration, which is nice in such a short time, and which is actually promising. So I'm very sure that this is just the beginning of Eurecat and Limpra being collaborating in robotics, and also your members. So I will share with you today some of our expertise, some of our projects, and my expertise in those projects. And I hope that you can also give me some feedback about your activity, your interests during the session today. Okay, so first of all, I would like to introduce myself so that you get to know who's talking to you. My name is Jesús. I am a telecommunications engineer as a background from the Polytechnics University in Catalonia. I have a specific training in aeronautics and space technologies, and also in agile project management, and also in European funded projects management. I've been doing this kind of activity since 15 years in different research and technology organizations. I'm currently working at Eurecat. I will give you a bit more information about what's Eurecat. I'm currently playing the role of responsible of the different projects in which Eurecat is a digital innovation hub, is the representative of Spain as a digital innovation hubs. For instance, you may recognize some of the logos here, specifically these three: AgroboFood, DIH Hero, and DIH Square. Those are projects aiming at building networks of digital innovation hubs, of research institutions, so that we build a network in Europe and we make it easier for you, for the companies, to get in touch with all the research results that as an European community we are producing every year. I am also a very active member in the different European and national robotics platforms. So you probably could recognize here EU Robotics logo. So EU Robotics is the European robotics technology platform that was created in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. I actually promoted the creation of a topic group on autonomous navigation, which is a core technology expertise at Eurecat, at the robotics unit of Eurecat. I am also very deeply involved in the different regional and national networks for promoting the use of robotics. So having said that, let me give you a bit more information, quick information about what's Eurecat. Eurecat is a Spanish entity located in Catalonia, so in the northeast of Spain. We are a research and technology organization. So legally, we are formed as a non-profit private foundation. So that means that we have a board formed by companies, but we are non-profit. So we are research-based, but market-oriented. So we should not be doing just research very basic, far from the market, but on the contrary, we should be close to the market, close to the companies, in order to transfer the results that we get in our projects. This is also why you see here a lot of bullet points, let's say, on the Catalan territory, because we want to be close to the companies. So we have facilities in the different Catalan territory in order to be close to the companies with the relevant infrastructure. So we have laboratories which are relevant for the local industry. In some sites, we have more like chemistry-oriented laboratories, or maybe manufacturing, or maybe like material-based, sustainability, nutrition, and also for sure robotics. Always trying to be close to the companies. We have a yearly turnover of around 50 million euros. More or less, that's 1/3 coming from direct contracts from companies, so like private money. 1/3 is coming from competitive calls, national and European, at national and European level. And then 1/3 is coming from the government. We are not public, but there is certain money allocated to the innovation ecosystem of the region, and some of this money is coming to Eureka. Just to say that more than 50% of our activity is with SMEs, so small and medium companies. Just a few more figures about what is really important, other than the laboratories and the facilities. So the core of our activity is the people, the know-how that we have as a team. We are now close to 700, so 690 more or less. These are a bit old figures. 20%, a bit more, of those people are PhDs, so third degree training, and we have more than 50-50 between men and women. Last figures about Eurecat. So we are the 4th private Spanish entity. We were the 4th private Spanish entity at Horizon 2020. So being successful on getting grants for European projects. We can normally do the coordination role as long as we have resources to do this, and as long as it's strategic for us. So we are used to playing that role, and we have a lot of running projects currently. So that's probably not very different from institutions that you may have around you, but how we work with companies is the following way. So you see here a growing arrow, let's say. In the left, we are a bit far from the market, and on the right, we are closer to the market. That means that we start on the strategic phase with companies, advising and assessing technology for them, so that they can and you can evaluate the use of different technologies in your companies. So we can make diagnosis of the different technologies for your company. We can co-design strategic solutions and plan how to implement those solutions according to the risk and to the cost. Other than that, we can use our facilities to make proof of concepts, and that is a concept that I will insist later on my presentation, so that you don't need to spend an euro, you don't need to spend money before you get some conclusions about the utility of the technology in your companies. So at the end, we have facilities, we have agreements with corporates and big players in order to have the latest technology in our laboratories. So having said that, and before entering into examples of the use of technology, I would like to briefly go through the context that we are living on currently. And it's that I see in the following way. So automation, it's been there since the beginning of the era for the humanity, let's say. So we can find references to robots in the Greek mythology, also in Asian cultures. Lately, in the Renaissance, we have big figures like Leonardo designing, automating automation machines, aiming at making life easier for humans. So automation and robotics, it's not just a product from the Industrial Revolution. It is true that during the first Industrial Revolution and the latest Industrial Revolutions, automation and robotics has been emerging and growing on interest and on being close to the market. So it was like in the second half of the 21st century, with mass production needs, and the need to produce more for more people, quicker, with the highest possible quality, as fast as possible, with the lowest scrap and with the low inventory possible, that we started to talk about lean manufacturing. Okay, so that was focusing on the product, and the different initiatives were mainly implementing on the processes, the manufacturing processes, in the sense that the driving force was the standardization of our factory. Okay, so what happened then when the demand got more specialized? So the demand started to request for personalized production, for customized solutions. So we had to be more flexible. So the different references that we have in our catalogs were growing. The size of the lot were decreasing, and it's actually decreasing now still. Sometimes we try to have what we call the one size lot. So a lot that is just composed by one product, because that's the final paradigm of personalization. We want to be flexible in our factories. So this is driving us actually to digitize our factory, to have data from all of our machines, from all of our processes, to really get to know what's happening in our factory, to be more effective in our decision-making processes. So we have moved from a standardized factory to a connected factory, to be more agile. And that's actually what we have called since 2011, more or less, Industry 4.0, right? So when we thought we were aware of all the technologies this Industry 4.0 and this connected factory was implementing, like robotics, automation, blockchain, big data, 5G, AI. So what just happened is that more or less since 1.5 years, so at the European level, we started talking about Industry 5.0. Okay, so what is that about Industry 5.0? The big news is that we are not radically changing the technology concepts. So that's the big news. We don't need to learn again about new technologies, new knowledge. But we need to radically change the way we think about solutions. So our mindset needs to be completely different. And I think that's probably one of the biggest and better changes that we have actually implemented or started in Europe, because we are actually taking all this knowledge from the past industrial revolution and focusing on an implementation that it's good for the human, it's good for us, it's good for our planet. So we are recovering, let's say, values from our human nature, like better human working conditions, sustainability, to really care about our environment and our planet, and actually the resilience. Okay, and that's actually something that we have learned a lot in the latest year due to the pandemic situation. And we are taking all these old values and putting them at the center of our mindset and the way we design solutions. So that's the way the European Commission represents this Industry 5.0, right? So it's human-centric. It's driven by sustainability. So zero impact or positive impact on the planet. And it's resilient in the way that we can still be strong and work even if we are suffering from extraordinary events like a pandemic situation, or maybe a climate change and a sudden change in climate affecting us and affecting our activity. In a simplified way, the way I see this is that we are putting all the digitization effort with data at the center being offered to the human, but we are changing this and we are putting the human and the persons at the center of all our reflection, thinking before on what's useful for the people working on factories and living on the planet, and then designing other technology for the benefit of this purpose. So how is this transferred to our factories? And how is robotics contributing to this? In my view, and that's probably a radical change in paradigms, because we come from in the latest times when we thought about robotics, still these years, a lot of people just think on robotics as a substitute, a replacement for humans. But I see this in a different way. I think that robotics and all the surrounding technologies are actually expanding workers and human skills in a way that we have better vision skills, we can become stronger, and we can move faster, let's say. So in a way, all this technology is making that our workers are super workers, let's say. So we keep all the values from the lean manufacturing. We can still be more, produce higher quality products faster and be more competitive. But now on the right, you can see also values referring to a more human-centered mindset. So we have workplaces that pose less risks to the workers, are more economics, and are more sustainable to the planet. And that's very interesting. For instance, when you see on your workforce, so we are forced to work, let's say, for an older ages. So the workforce is aging, and that's because of demographic change. So we have older people in our factories, and that means that we need to provide a better condition for this workforce. At the same time, we have new generations entering into our factories, and what we found is that, and we are finding, is that these new generations are more interested in our workplaces if these workplaces are technified. So somehow we got engaged new generations in our factories and better conditions for older generations of workers. And there is a very interesting link there between new generations and older generations. So we can get the experience from older to enrich, the new generations. So how are we trying to put this in value from the robotics unit at Eureka? So we have 4 main research lines. We work on industrial robotics, mainly focusing on manipulation and collaboration. And I will show you some of the examples we have lately implemented. We are also focusing on computer vision, not only for industrial applications, but also for outdoor applications or field robotic applications like agriculture. And I see this perception as a very important complement to robotics, for robotics to be more agile, for robotics to be more flexible and intelligent. And then we have 2 research lines working on field robotics, and that's mainly for ground robotics, for indoor factory, but also for outdoor environments, and on aerial robots. So drones for factory applications, and you will see one of them today, and also for inspection and maintenance, agriculture, for outdoor applications, which is not that much relevant for today, where we are focusing on manufacturing. And how we are embracing this Industry 4.0 mindset is in the following way. So if we take that industrial robotics line or area and field robotics or autonomous robotics area, so we have moved from a traditional design of applications to a collaborative robotics, then to some more complex robotic solutions, implementing, for instance, mobile manipulators. And now we are basically designing all our solutions thinking on the humans. So thinking how the robot should provide information to the human to be trustworthy and explainable, and increase the acceptance of the workers to this technology, but also how the human and what the human is doing can be understood by the robot in order to plan its actions according to what the human is doing. So if you think now, for instance, on robotics, especially in factories, they are either closed in a cell or they are programmed for specific tasks when they are collaborative, in a way that the workers have to move according to the robot. And we have actually talked a lot with our companies, and what they have told us is that the workers do not feel comfortable by having to follow the robot. But on the contrary, if the robot could adapt to the speed of the human, you could increase the acceptance of those technology. So that's actually the way we are designing our robotic solution. And this is applying to industrial, but also to autonomous, to our autonomous research area, when we talk about outdoor robots and field robots. I would like now to give you some examples on how we are actually implementing projects with companies at research levels, but also at the market level, let's say. So let me run this video a bit quicker so that you can see it all. Okay, so this is not necessarily human-centered, as you won't see a human in this video. This is, I would say, old Industry 4.0 design solutions. But what we are doing as a technology center, it's basically combining different technologies and transferring this knowledge to system integrators so that they can put this in place and install this into their clients. You see here an example in which we are combining a robotic arm, making a grip of a product that it's being manufactured as a metallic profile for automotive industry. So this robotic arm is taking a tray of those products and palletizing them. So this robot is synchronized with a mobile robot so that the mobile robot is arriving and taking the pallet when the pallet is full. So we are working on connectivity solutions so that different technologies are working together, let's say, in an efficient way, and they are not isolated on the factory. So that is one thing. And the other thing that you can see on your right, it's a program, let's say a tool that we have developed and we are currently using, and it has had very good acceptance in the research community and in companies that are using open source solutions for implementing robotics. And it's a tool that makes programming robots easier. And like if it was a game, you can drag and drop the different boxes defining the behavior of the robot. You can configure these boxes with the right behavior that you want for your robot. And this is defining the planning and the sequence of actions that your robot is doing. The interesting thing is that you can easily program this from one task to another, so that if you have to flexibly adapt your process to a changing request, to a changing requirement from your demand, you could do it by using tools like that one. This is a very interesting project that we have implemented on collaborative robotics. This is really now, or I think, I like to say it that way, Industry 4.0, in the sense that we are using robotics to relieve the human from a tedious and monotonous task and focusing the attention of the human to what's interesting in the analysis of the data. So here there is a collaborative robot which is doing a verification task. So the robot is actually switching on and off different buttons, pushing buttons, switches, and even a touch screen for an aeronautics cockpit, for a plane cockpit. So you see here there are plenty of connections to verify. That was previously done manually. The robot here is gathering data about the force that it's doing to actionate, switch on and off every connection. And actually, it's also gathering visual data about the verification task. So the human is basically focusing on the result of this test and providing value on what it's worth. Another very interesting example of Industry 5.0 projects that we have is Sharework. This is an European project that we are coordinated from Eurecat, 8 million euro with 15 partners from different countries and different sectors. We have different use cases that I will show you in a minute, but I will focus now on the technology. So, and the technology is the following. As I was saying before, we are using perception in order to gather information about the workplace, about the human, about what the human is doing, in which position the human is performing a task, in which place is it, which tool the human is holding. And with all this knowledge gathered by different cameras, and by using artificial intelligence algorithms, we can get to know whether the human is cleaning, it's gathering the screw, it's doing an assembly task, or it's maybe passing a tool to the next worker. Then the robot get to know which task is the human doing and in which part of the manufacturing process we are. So the robot can plan its next action based on this knowledge. So it's the robot which is adapting to the human activity and not vice versa. So this technology is devoted, and we want and we hope that it will facilitate the acceptance of robotics by the worker. So I was saying that this project has been, it's been tested actually this year in different use cases. You see here use cases on capital goods manufacturing. On the top left corner, you see a girl, which is doing an assembly task. It's taking the screws and putting the screw on the hold. And then when she is finished, the robot is going and screwing the different, it's tightening the bolt. So the task, which is requiring the highest strength, it's performed by the robot, and we relieve the worker of doing higher efforts. Then on the top, on the bottom left, we have a use case on the automotive sector. The worker is doing the assembly of a door into the car chassis, assisted by a robot. On the top right, you have an assembly task for a metal industry, an Italian partner, and you see how the robot and the human are moving as if it was a dance, as if it was a choreography, right? But a choreography which is led by the human. And on the bottom right, you see one of my colleagues performing different tasks on a simulated scenario for railway manufacturing of Alstom company. Then the perception algorithm can detect what he's doing, and the robot is moving accordingly. So a couple more examples of this Industry 4.0 technology, and now moving on to the autonomous and mobile robotics. Robotics, it's not only static robots and robotic arms, but as I was saying before, we can have and we can relieve humans of doing higher efforts at transportation of goods within the factory. So at Eurecat, we have got very deep and interesting and valuable knowledge on mobile robotics and autonomous navigation. So here you see my colleague, Carlos, which is the principal investigator of the autonomous and mobile research lines, implementing a very specific maneuver for two vehicles moving on a tandem configuration. So this is basically interesting to carry heavy loads between two vehicles. So this has been implemented for aeronautics. In aeronautics now, they have vehicles which are physically connected, and this physical link between the vehicles is suffering a lot of stress while moving and while holding the big aeronautic load, like a wing of the plane. So we got the request of implementing a solution in which the robots were moving in tandem configuration with a very precise error, so with a very low error in the distance between them, but without physical connection. So we had to connect them digitally in a master-slave configuration in a way that they can keep the distance when moving this load. Another example of mobile robotics, and in that case applied to outdoor robotics, it's Logimatic. Logimatic is a project that we coordinated at Eurecat. We were actually implementing and retrofitting from a manual configuration to an autonomous configuration this big vehicle. This is a 15 meters tall port vehicle aiming at taking the containers from the port yard and moving the containers up and down within the yard and from the yard to the ship or from the yard to the truck. So there is a growing interest from the ports to have part of their fleet automated, in the sense that one person could supervise different of those vehicles, and we get to use people in a more efficient way, so that one person can multiply, the vehicles that they can manage. So in that project, we were fusing and combining navigation solutions from satellite, like GPS, EGNOS, and Galileo, with traditional navigation technologies from robotics and sensors on board of the vehicle, in a way that we provide a coverage and a positioning service which is secure, 100% in the 100% of the surface of the port. Because that's critical. You cannot have one of those automated vehicles hitting with a crane. That's critical for ports, right? So we were fusing different technologies, navigation technologies, to implement navigation solutions. Two more examples about navigation solutions, and this case applied directly to industry. In the left, you see an example that we have worked with SEAT from Volkswagen Group to implement a drone that can supply parts to their production line, so that you don't move all the parts on ground, because it's quite saturated now. It's quite there is a lot of congestion in what you move on the floor. You have people moving around, workers, managers, then you have AGVs moving loads. So there is a growing interest on using the upper part of the warehouses on the manufacturing to actually move parts. So this is still TRL 6. It's been tested in a real environment, but the technology still needs to improve a bit more to be able to carry heavier loads. And on the right, you see a ground robot thought for last mile delivery, but also for transportation of loads between warehouses in industrial scenarios. So you can basically put the load on the robot, assign a destination, and then the robot would move the load to the next warehouse or factory or production line. And all this is based on digital technology that can perceive the environment, can map their environment, both outdoor and indoor. Then 3 examples about vision before moving to my final comment. as I said before, I see computer vision. We see computer vision at Eurecat as a key complement, as a key enabler technology for robotics to make robots more flexible and smarter. So we are working hard in order to implement perception technologies that can get to know information about the workplace, as you could see on Sharework example, but also on the product in order to verify whether a product is being correctly produced or not, as you could see in the example of the cockpit of the plane. Two more examples of what we are doing with computer vision. For instance, in this case, applied to the food and beverage industry. So we are using multispectral technology with very cheap sensors in order to define which are the best frequency band and which are the best commercial sensors, not so cheap, for companies to solve their problems. So we have actually implemented and do several proof of concepts in the food and beverage industry in order, for instance, here to check the sealing of food packaging and also the quality of the food produced. Because, for instance, whether there is a burned area or degraded area or an area in the food that does not look good, this is affecting the sales of the company. So they want to check this before the product actually gets to the user. And we were testing, as I was saying, expensive technology implemented through expensive sensors. So a hyperspectral camera can cost very easily 30,000 or 40,000 euro in order to decide which is the best sensor on the market at a cheapest cost that the company should implement in their processes to actually have this information. And a final example on computer vision, it's also on recycling. So there are a lot of efforts on implementing sophisticated technologies on the recycling part so that we can recover more and more of the waste that we as a human produce directly or our industries produce. So here in that example, we are implementing deep learning technologies, so AI technologies, in order to classify and distinguish between different types of paper so that a later robotic system can classify these according to their type and to their potential valorization, so that we get to know less of waste going, to without use, to being just stored. But we can valorize and recycle more and more of those products. So I'm coming to an end, and just before finishing, I would really like to highlight the importance of being networked, and especially for research institutions and technology centers and universities like us, in order to offer the companies an easy way of accessing all the results and all the facilities we have. And let me put the examples of two projects in which we are participating. So this is a national network in which we are participating as a technology center with other 4 technology centers from Spain. We are networking, we are defining a catalog of technologies, and we are defining a catalog of facilities. We are trying to find complementarities in order to make like a big national laboratory on robotics so that companies can come to us and test their solutions, their ideas with our technology, with our components and our facilities, without expending big amounts of money. So just paying for the hours of the knowledge of the people, you can get to know very valuable feedback about whether a technology is useful or not for you. And that's before you start implementing things on your factories. So we are basically focusing on 3 big technological areas, and those are perception, interaction, so to make better the collaboration between human and robots and human and machines in general, and cognition, so that we can implement technologies that make robotics smarter. So at the end, as I was saying, we are defining a catalog of facilities. You can see here, for instance, the picture of the facilities at Eurecat, but also with the facilities of the other partners, we are defining a catalog of 5 manufacturing pilot lines that we can put for the benefit of SMEs. We are following as a directive to define our working lines in technology, what has been defined at European level in the different associations related to AI, data, and robotics, and especially ADRA, which is the association that gathers these 3 disciplines, AI, data, and robotics, in order to be aligned with the European policies and the European research programs. We have also included and formed a consortium in Spain that try to cover and to provide the highest coverage at national level, so that companies in any place in Spain can come to us and test their ideas in our facilities. And just before finishing, this same thinking about being networked, we are also, as Eurecat and as a network, we are also trying to connect with other international partners, so that what we have at national level can be replicated and can benefit from the valuable knowledge and expertise of other international institutions. In that sense, we are part of the DH2 project led by VTT, in which Eurecat is the Spanish representative of this network that is trying to build a community of practices and operational protocols for research institutions being easily accessible from companies. So that was my last slide. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you could get some insights from my presentation, and I will be happy to answer any of your questions and participate in the latest activity of the roundtable. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesus. I saw applause already. That means that your presentation was really interesting, not only for me, but for other people as well. It was very practical, what business usually likes. So thank you for doing that. So let's start roundtable, and I ask everyone to turn your cameras on. And Jesus, I would like to ask you to turn off your slides, that we could see people more. Yes, thank you, the first ones who opened their cameras again. My first question is for everyone, and just to wake you up and to think about best and worst experiences that you had in the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, or any other new technologies related to Industry 4.0 or Industry 5.0. Are there any examples that come to your mind that you would like to share for everyone, just to start our discussion? Grażyna, maybe you as a representative of Limpra, as you unite around 100 companies, I believe, and I believe that you visited 130 already. Woo, that's a number. So I believe that you visited many of them, and maybe you could share some stories of Lithuanian companies that we have here.
Yes, Rihanna, definitely. We are visiting our companies, and situation there differs like night and day, because some of them are really well robotized. They have the all production line automated, robots moving there and up and down, and you only come as a spectator with no interruption. Then we have companies which have some robot hands which stand in the corners and drill few holes per day. That is obviously not an efficient usage of the robots. And other companies are those whose CEOs only have some thoughts about getting robotized, but they didn't taken any action yet. So really, this is a very relevant topic, and it is obvious that discussion, sharing of experience and knowledge is really relevant among companies.
Thank you. While you were talking about hands of robots, doing just several holes per day, I remembered even better example. It's example of one Lithuanian company, unfortunately, but one consultant entering the factory, and he saw a robot having flower pot. And he was interested, what's going on? And CEO told the story that we wanted to buy some robot because it's so trendy. So we bought some robot, and then we found it out that, oops, the robot is no use. So we decided just to use it as decoration in the factory, and it's flower pot holding a robot now. And when he asked, why didn't you sell in the second market or something, we said like, we even didn't thought about that. So we were so disappointed with our first robotics project that we decided just to kill it and do not think about robots again, just as decoration elements. So unfortunately, those kind of stories happen. But maybe some participants coming from Lithuania and other countries would like to share their experience. Good ones are very welcome now. Lukas, Edvinas, as you have your cameras on, you are on my screen, so well seen. So maybe you would like to share what experiences your companies have in the fields of robotics, artificial intelligence, or any other new technologies. I see that Lukas turned his mic off. Thank you.
Yeah, Ariana, sure. We can share a bit. So my name is Lukas. I'm working in a workshop of photonics, and currently we have a project of, well, robotization, right? I wouldn't call it Industry 5.0 yet, but essentially what we are doing, we are building femtosecond laser micromachining devices, right? And we are looking into eliminating the need for a person to essentially move the samples from the holder to the sample holder where the fabrication process is essentially happening. So what we are doing now is we are collaborating with ABB, the company. I hope you've heard of it. So they provided us with a robot arm, a manipulator arm, essentially. So we are now implementing that. We're still in the early steps. However, we already managed to prove that it works, and it is possible to do that. There are some challenges still that we have to overcome, like accuracy, because, well, we work in a micrometer world, so it is very important for us. So yeah, that's the experience that I have so far.
Thank you, Lukas, and it's good to see that you already know that it's not going to be flower pot stand.
Oh, definitely.
Robert, definitely. That's good. That means that you did your homework. And Edvinas, what kind of experience does your company face?
Well, hello. I'm from company Vilpros Pramonė, and for now we have only one robot that is used for welding, and I didn't have enough experience with that particular robot because I'm new in this company, and we are trying to move on with robots, with automatization. We are searching new ideas how to make packaging even easier or better with robots, and that one robot that we use are welding stoves for wood burning in houses and outside, and it's easy to use. It's programmable, and I don't know how much time it takes to make a program for one stove, but I assume it's about 4 hours. So that's a minor problem that we are facing now. But I assume that in near future we will be able to tell you more about our automatization, because we want to install this in our factory.
Thank you, Edvinas, for sharing your experience too. And Gražina, please keep in mind that in the near future, you could have some Lithuanian experience to be shared internationally as well. Thank you both. And Jesus, I do have a question regarding how to find the best robotic solution. As we see that that's quite a challenge, and maybe you have some tips and tricks how to make it, how to be sure that your robotic or any other new technology project is successful.
Okay, that's a $1 million question, right?
We will share that 1 million, I promise.
Yeah. I would say, first of all, I mean, it really depends on the company. So the company and whoever is working with the company really need to be aware of the operations of the company and how the company would like to exploit these solutions. Because a solution that was commenting before, for instance, Lucas, I think, that a robot is devoted for a very specific task to relieve a human, may not be enough or may not justify the cost for another company because of, you know, their production cost, selling price, whatever. So the business case, it's really key. And there is another comment on that I will make later. Then, for companies that are not really into the robotics or are not used to work with technology in general, let's say, normally it's difficult. It's very overwhelming to go to the catalogs of the companies or just Googling keywords, right? So my suggestion at the end is that they go through their system providers that may be closer to the technology for sure, and no surprise here, I guess, use us like technology centers to talk about their needs, their challenges, because we try to be and to have the latest technology on the market. We are closer to ABB, to KUKA, to FANUC, to, you know, all the big players, not just robotic manufacturers, but also components providers on computer vision, sensors. And we try to have the latest technology on our laboratories to test. So I strongly believe here on the co-design efforts. So we need to co-design, implement co-design activities, iterative activities where we spend some time looking at what we have, looking at what we can get to know on the network. So the power of the network is huge. There is the wisdom, it's not just on the head of one people, but it's separated and splitted in different, you know, institutions. So for me, that's the way to do it. There is not like a web that you can go and check the best robotic solution, because at the end, there are very cool solutions from different providers, and it's difficult to just, you know, identify them. That might be my suggestion, let's say.
It was very good advice. Talk to other people, because usually other people do have their own experience, and Google is not probably the best way to search for the best robotic solution that would be suitable for your company. So thank you, Jesus. And I would like to hear Lucas out loud, because he's going to have some remarks. So Lucas, please.
Thank you, Orijana. Jesus, first of all, I wanted to thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting to see all the cases that you're essentially dealing with. I come from the IT background, and obviously my question is going to be related to that. And what I want to know is, for each of the cases that you are working on, each of the problem that you're trying to solve, how big of the part of the challenge is the, let's say, the software part of the project, right? For example, the navigation system for the ground robots, the flying robot, right? The drone, or the vision camera for sorting the paper. How big of a challenge is the IT part of the project for you?
It's like 90% for us.
90%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are not designing, at least at Eureka, we are not designing robots. We are not focusing on the mechanical parts and electrical and electronics. So that's not our goal at the robotics unit. So 80–90% of what we do is software. Any improvement that should be made on sensors, on hardware, at least from our side, we expect that to be provided by the market. So highest computing capabilities, more precise sensors, more robust to outdoor environment or to dust or to vibrations. We are not working on that, but it's true that I know other institutions that work very closely with companies to put new products on the market. But for us, 90% is software.
How do you deal with the challenge to find IT people? As we have this challenge in Lithuania, quite a huge one.
Yeah, we have like 5 vacancy notes opening out for having new people on board. And it's taking some time to hire them and to find them. So it's not easy. And actually, I had a very interesting discussion a few weeks ago with a manager of a company here in Spain. And he was telling me that he thought even that the training programs of the schools was not adapted to the industry demands, which is actually a very big problem. So, at Eurecat, we have Eurecat Academy. So there is a big department for training, what we call Eurecat Academy. And we try to complement what universities already train and offer with maybe more professionalized and practical training. So like every year we try to define new courses and with new technologies on so that we can really reskill and upskill our workforce. But Orijana, that's a nightmare for us as well.
Seems like it's a nightmare for many of the European Union countries. That's true. I see that Mindaugas joined us too. Mindaugas, maybe you would like to share what kind of experience does your company have in the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, or any other new technologies?
Hello, thank you for this presentation. Thank you, Jesus. So I'm Mindaugas from company Mikron Kaunas. We are standing for the part of providing solutions. So we are not buying the robotic solutions, we are providing. So what one of the interesting points is that innovating solutions needs to have smart customers and innovative companies. So what I mean, so normally if you want to buy a car, you need to have a car license. So you need to know how to drive, and therefore you know which car is good, which one is not, because normally it's not only enough for customer to go to one of the systems integrator asking, I want robot. So if you ask for a robot, you can get the robot. It's going to be the vacuum cleaning robot probably, and maybe as Orijana mentioned, someone holding flowers in the robot's hands or something like that. So I would really recommend for someone who's interested in robotics to build the knowledge first, to attend to let's say some global events, so some technology fairs, and to broaden the picture, broaden the site for different systems and options. Therefore, without building the knowledge, it's really difficult to step into the robotics because there are really multiple options, and sometimes someone who's lacking the experience might be shooting for really overkill solution, which is really expensive, which is too much expensive, and not to the because why we are talking about robotics. This is the invention which helps us to solve problems, because so therefore the appropriate solution needs to be taken for specific problems. So therefore some consultancy agencies and R&Ds firms like Jesús mentioned, they are working to try to solve problems with the right proper applications, proper solutions. Yeah, so this is I believe very important for our growing technology sector in Lithuania to target the right technology. Yeah, thank you.
Mindaugas, thank you for your insights. What do you think? How much time is needed to gather some knowledge regarding robotics? How much time should you invest to have basic knowledge to start at least talking to various technologies providers?
Oh, that's really good question. Coffee machine is also kind of robotics. So how much time does it take to put the coffee machine at your home? Yeah. So it could be some laser technology, I don't know, or some 3D printing, collaborative technology. It could be. It depends on the application. I would say it takes quite a few meetings with let's say system integrators, with the robotic solution suppliers on some events, watching what's on the market, how other companies already solved the solution, not reinventing the wheel. So just to see how others are solving your problem. So this is I would say a few occasions for that would be my answer.
And probably the best thing is that at least Lithuanian companies are becoming more and more open, sharing their knowledge and sharing their experience.
Yes.
And I know that the LIMPRA members are always really open to meet new companies and share their experience. So I really invite everyone just to give a call for your colleague from the industry and just have a chat, and probably that could be a nice beginning of exploring the new technology. So thank you, Mindaugas, for your insight. Jesús, probably you wanted to reply to Mindaugas and to share your insight on this topic.
Yeah, I wanted to complement that answer, but it was Dalius first. I don't know. Dalius,
no, you could complement. That's okay, because I noticed that you raised your hand when Mindaugas was talking. So probably that's regarding Mindaugas' insights.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's about regarding the timing. You need to get some knowledge. So at the end, if you're a technical guy and you had to implement the technology on the shop floor, for sure you need to get some expertise, and you will get to know and get to receive some training. But for the decision of investing or not investing and so on, you don't need to be an expert on the technology. So you need to be able to identify the risks, to really identify the product fit for your challenge, and then you need to know, you need to get some technical information, but not like at very profound level. So, but especially, you know, the risks. So is that technology new? How new is it? How many times has been tested? So you need to get to know, you know, this probably in fairs, as Mindaugas was saying, during the trade fairs and chatting with others, going to see how this technology works in other companies. So, and this is the kind of information I think you need at the very first time in order to decide whether to go through this way or not.
Thank you. We will come back to this risk and challenges regarding new technologies later on. But now, please, Dalius, raise his hand.
Thank you. So I would like to take this discussion further to the business field and talk a little bit about return on investment. If we are thinking about traditional automation, which is traditional robotics doing mostly, we have pretty good understanding that we will be able to do something more efficiently, faster, more, etc. But then if you are talking about interactive or collaborative robotics. Does that bring into the picture any new areas for return on investment? Any new questions to think about when we are building the business case? Thank you.
I would have 2 insights for that, if I may, Orijana. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Probably
Because,
that was a question for you.
Yeah,
yes.
that's actually something that I wanted to mention here, because it's the way we calculate the return of the investment. So I have still actually found a lot of companies that basically just focus on the salary of the people that you basically save. And it's not that you are just taking that people away from the company and fire them, but I mean, you are saving some time from these people to be devoted to one task. So it's maybe half journey that you are saving, you know, taking that people out of that task. So you take basically 50% of the salary of that people, and that's very basics. But then I think we are basically forgetting at least 2 main things. So by using robotics, normally you may be able to do the process in a most effective way, maybe also with less scrap, less waste. So at the end, this is less cost. And at the end of the chain, when you sell that product, you are getting higher profit because this is less cost if you keep the price. So this higher profit should also be taken into account into the return of investment. And it may not be obvious. Okay, it may not be obvious, but you need to take into account this. And the second is, by implementing robotics, you may be more competitive. So, and that's probably a bit of a longer term. But if you are more competitive and you have the chance to get new market, to increase your market share, this is also, you know, an input, an economic input you can estimate. It's more uncertain and probably it takes longer time, but it needs to be taken into account, because sometimes people want to have the same workforce with robotics to produce more and to be more competitive. So it's a difficult analysis, I know, because it's, you know, making the financial prospects for few years. So, and that can be optimistic scenario and worst case scenario, but you know, that's managing companies, you know, better than me.
And now we know that we should take into account black swan scenario as well, as pandemic or war happened. Thank you, Jesus. And as we talked a bit about the risks and challenges that should be evaluated, maybe you could, this is the question to Jesus, you know, you are a keynote speaker today, so sorry for addressing all the hard, difficult questions for you, but what are common challenges for organizations that decide to implement robotic solutions in the companies? And do you have any recommendations how to overcome those challenges? Because you mentioned that there are some common risks and challenges, so maybe you could mention at least 3 that are the most common for organizations.
Yes. Well, there is, I could say, yes, 3 of them, for instance, that come to my mind when I think about our activity. So there is the technical risk, okay, and because there might not be a product in the market to solve your problem, or there may be a potential solution which is not yet fully tested, or it's a pre-commercial phase. So in order to reduce that risk, in our case, so this is actually justifying the existence of Eurecat and similar centers. So we are here to assume part of this risk, you know, to take over part of this risk. Of course, we cannot assume this at no cost, but we can optimize the money that the companies spend on these early phases to help them to make the right decisions. So we have laboratories, we have infrastructure, we have components. If we don't have them, maybe somebody else have, and if not, maybe we can get them from the companies through a renting or maybe for free, I don't know. So that's one thing, technical risk. And I think we are here to do this. So the second thing is investment. Again, we can be in the early phases before any company decides to make an investment. But then second, we need to have better tools for analyzing the return of the investment of that specific project or solution, as I was saying now. And probably that is more on the theoretical part, and managers or business people, they will have their own methodologies or tools to do this that probably have worked well in the past. So I don't know whether there are single one one answer to this question for the analysis of the ROI. And the third one, and you have mentioned this several times, and it was mentioned as well in the worries or interest of the companies, is the user acceptance. So you can do anything, it's at your hand to evaluate the technology, put the technology on the factory, and then be, as you said, a flower power, on a corner. So you cannot afford this for sure. So you need to explain very well to your workforce what you are doing. And that should be coming from the managing of the company. And it's not easy. You will find, you may struggle, you may find some resistance, but my experience is that there is always someone. There is maybe a few percentage which are more early adopters, innovators. You should find those ambassadors in your company that may have certain influence, or that you can rely on them to train things, to hand by hand explain that to the workers. And that's not an insight from me, but it's an insight from the companies that you talk, that they see that way of proceeding. And I found it very interesting, actually. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Thank you, Jesus. And I would like to ask to add one story to that. I've been talking to a big telecommunication company. They established data analytics and artificial intelligence department in their company. And the guys from that department were complaining for me that nobody cares about what we do. And I was asking, like, so what do you do to change their opinion? Do you have any internal events? Do you have some internal webinars, seminars? Do you have coffees with your employees, to explain what you are doing, why is your work important, etc.? And they were like looking at me like, are you crazy? We're doing our data analytics, artificial intelligence things. Why should we explain something for everyone? They should understand everything by themselves. That's not our job to do that. And it was like talking, I don't know, with some aliens, and we were on completely different positions, and we could not find like the general opinion on that. But after like an hour or something, one lady told me, maybe we should talk to our employees, to our colleagues. Maybe that could help. So that reminded me, like new technologies are brought to organizations, but sometimes managers and even people working with those technologies don't want to spend time on dealing with colleagues. They want to spend some, sharing experience time with them. And that's probably one of the key challenges that companies should overcome when we deal with new technology. So I just wanted to put my remark on that as well. Okay, see,
That's actually the Industry 5.0 thinking, So I know that big companies cannot ask one by one every single employee, but they need to have channels and mechanisms to get that feedback from the employees. So it's not just making decisions based on Excel, but it's Excel plus emotions, feelings, and people. So yeah.
Internal communication. Yeah, internal communication is key, even if it's regarding new technologies. Okay, I see that Dalius raised his hand again, so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As I'm working for a company which brings artificial intelligence to industry. This is our mission in the company, I would like to hear your experience. You mentioned a lot of artificial intelligence technologies that you're using, but which of those are most important and most sought after at this stage in the industry? Which are most used in your experience?
Yeah. Okay. So technically, I'm not an expert on AI, but of course, I could talk about what we are doing and the projects and the companies what they request. So there is one clear thing, which is computer vision and everything associated to, for instance, quality inspection tasks, defect detection, and so on. So there's a clear trend for companies to have more intelligence on the quality checking and quality assurance processes, which for some industries, traditional ones especially, this is done manually. Normally, of course, not checking one by one the pieces, but statistically checking some pieces and so on. But if you would have like technology, AI technology there, you could provide a more accurate traceability, and potentially in the long term, like one by one quality assurance procedures could be possible. And that's more and more, and especially for instance in food production, but also in aeronautics and automotive, it's been there for a long time. So this has been requested. Like you can guarantee the traceability of the product from the raw material to the consumption of the end user. So more and more, if we want to have, like trustworthy products, confiable scenarios, so we need to be able to provide this traceability. So AI at least now, it's very much implemented for industry there. Of course, then what makes a robot more intelligent, for instance, in an outdoor scenario, when it comes to moving, for a domestic applications, even in healthcare. So this is a request. I mean, you cannot have a robot or in front of a human and expect that the human accepts that robot with a more or less natural behavior without AI. But that's more on a long term, I see. So the greatest thing you want a robot to do, and the more general AI you want to implement, so that's the longer term we will see this happening. But now I see these computer vision, quality assurance things happening right now.
And a short follow-up question: in computer vision and quality control, I see that industrial applications, which are sort of out of the box solutions, which you just need a simple adaptation, sort of, are becoming more and more available. So how do you see these standard products? Will they take over of this quality assurance area?
So for me now here, the focus to have better solutions, it's on providing solutions that are flexible and that do not need so much data to be trained, or that we can train them quickly. So at the end, if you need, a lot of data to train an algorithm to detect defects, so you may not, the company maybe don't want this. So, all the trend about using synthetic data, simulated processes, even digital twin to generate synthetic data and then to train models, that's probably the way I see this is going forward. Other than quality assurance, we have the example of Sharework, in which a camera was assessing and perceiving the environment to see what the human is doing, and then provide this information to the robot. And then the robot adapts to the human speed and the human processes. The thing here is there are a lot of ethical implications and social implications here. So you need to sell this very well to everyone and to actually implement a very confiable and trustworthy technical architecture because otherwise, you know, those are images from the employees going don't know where. So that's not going to be in the market if you don't take that into account.
Thank you, Jesús.
Okay, yes, we have about 10 minutes. That means that our discussion is coming to an end. So I kindly invite everyone to use those last 10 minutes to share your experience and to ask questions to Jesús or any other of our attendees. As I see from the list of participants that all of you have really great and different experience, what matters the most. No, it's not very good when all similar people gather together. The best things happen, the best solutions happen when different people in different experience and approaches match together. But while you are taking your breath or your bravery to do that, I have two more topics that I would like to cover briefly, and one is related to security issues. Because we discussed that robotics, on one hand, it's related to physical security. So we see many robots in some kind of cages in the factories, and it's also related to IT. That means cyber security, and maybe even some kind of emotional security of employees. At least these three security areas that I could think about. So, Jesús, what kind of security issues companies face, and what should they have in mind, and how should they cope with that while using robotics, artificial intelligence, or any of the new technologies?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Very deep question for these last 10 minutes, because it can provoke a lot of debate. Yeah, actually, you mentioned very wisely three main topics, let's say, for safety. So industrial robots at the end are safe because you put them on a cell. And that's what most people is doing right now. Actually, even collaborative robotics. So collaborative robots are inherently safe. They have technologies that make them safe. But when you put a knife on a robot, something that cuts, something that is not safe, then you put you put them in jail, you put them on a cell, and we are like in the same place as before. So there's still, but you see providers, technology providers, working more and more in doing safe tools, right? Cutting tools, not just grasping. So there is an effort of doing safe tools. And hopefully, this will boost the collaborative robotics industry up to a certain stage. That's one thing. Then also standards and regulations are being adapted. So there are institutions. From time to time, we participate in some of these efforts to actually update regulations and directives. Also, Europe is doing this, updating directives. Every state is then responsible of translating this to their own regulations. So there is an effort here from standardization bodies. And then there is this, you know, you said like human aspect, so social, which is actually as well very, very, very important, because you can put a robot in the factory, you can explain it well, but at long term, employees can feel bad about the use of the robot. And you need to be able to track this. And that's more on a human resources side, let's say, that we should have like mechanisms, you know, probably it's not that different from what companies may be doing now to track the satisfaction of an employee in a company. So we at Eureka have our own mechanism, like we have surveys, then we have direct contact from the human resources department. So they got a view on that. And from time to time, and actually this Friday, we have one of those discussions, open discussions from the human resources company when they explain the latest results on satisfaction. So we should include these indicators in those kind of exercises to see whether people is happy with the automation, with the introduction of the company, with the introduction of technology in the company. And last comment on security, like cyber security. We have a technical unit which is devoted to this. It's growing fast. We also see small companies providing services to manufacturing companies, because there are more and more tools, normally from big players, that can be implemented in the company to provide a safe environment. Not completely 100% against threats, but because you cannot get that guaranteed at 100%, but to provide at least also a resilient environment in which if something happens, you can recover from it, and it's not death for the company. You know, that would be my insight on that.
Thank you. And the last question from my side is regarding people again, as we were talking about that Industry 5.0 is focusing more on the planet of people. It's not about technology only. And there was one of the remarks in our registration form related to the thing that people do not want to learn new technologies. And we feel quite comfortable with their knowledge. And maybe you have some stories to how to inspire employees to learn something new. Okay, that's probably pretty easy for people working for Eurecat, as you are a technology-oriented organization. But what to do for our companies? Employees focus on their daily tasks and their daily routines. They are not willing, to make their brain work too much, as technology is really hard thing to understand, and why bother? So maybe you have some good examples to share that our companies could use.
Yes, that's very important as well, for sure. So and we need to respect it as well. So there may be people that is happy, with maybe more traditional work, but so automation and robotics at the end came to make their life easier, their working life easier, to prevent injuries, to prevent, injuries at long term. So it's proved, demonstrated that there are certain tasks that provide injuries at long term, and you can see this by talking with people that have been spending all their life in some positions, repetitive and so on. So what to do? What to do in order to make introduction and acceptance of technology easier? There is one statistic, a very interesting statistic that myself, that I'm passionate about innovation, I've get to read several times, which is that in a group of people, in a community, let's say in a country or probably even in a company, there is a percentage, which is the 16%, which is innovator. So I talked before about the ambassadors that we should have in our companies, and I truly believe on that. So the literature says that you can find at least 16% of your, let's say, community of a certain size, I guess, maybe between us, that we are 15 today. I don't know if that's a representative sample, but of a more or less, medium company, probably. So you can find 16% of the people which is willing and happy, to test new things, early adopters, techie people, and not necessarily always the new generations. So, but how to identify these? Probably that's the challenge. But if you know who they are, and you include them in the exercise, if you have an innovation committee in your company, you probably know who they are, right? So use those channels. I mean, we should use these channels. And maybe just to not extend too much on that, but one very interesting fact that happens when you put technology on the companies is that, and I mentioned that before, is that new generations that may be more techie and willing to embrace technology get closer to older generations, because at the end, older generations may be forced to embrace technology and they may not want, but if you explain them that the technology came to make their life easier, at least a part of them maybe should be engaged on the effort of putting technology in the company. So there may be very interesting synergies and links between people that it's ending their professional life with people that it's, starting. So best practices, all the knowledge that we lose with people, being retired. So there may be a way of getting back some of this knowledge at some point, because they just talk together when using technology. And technology, new interfaces may help on that. And not necessarily with very sophisticated tools. I've seen companies, let me say that way, just making, YouTube videos and not manuals, reading manuals, paperwork from older people showing how to do things to younger generations. Sometimes you don't need to complicate your life too much.
Jesus, I have one contradiction to you.
Yes.
Yes, as I read all the answers of participants, of people who were willing to participate today, and probably will watch this recording. So where was a lady from employment agency, from recruitment agency, and she wrote a thing that new generation is not willing to learn new technologies, as they feel that they're really tech people and there is nothing new to learn about. That was quite surprising comment for me myself. And when you were talking about this, let's put it that way, traditional attitude that older generation is not willing to learn, but there was a comment how to make new generation to learn new technologies. And that was quite surprising for me too. And I'm sorry that this lady does not participate in the webinar right now, but I hope that maybe next time we could develop on that as well. So thank you for your comment again. So our time comes to an end. So I would like to thank everyone for your participation. And before, that's a notice for Lithuanians especially, before you are going to have lunch, do one more important thing. It's really my strong recommendation you could do that. Get a free assessment and find out how your SME can move towards Industry 5.0. In the chat box, you see a link that Aquila from Limpra shared with you, and you could evaluate your company's digital maturity. And project experts will get back to you with a wholesome analysis of your strengths and weakness and will help you to make an action plan. So now you see there is a free tool to find out what's your maturity and to get insights and recommendations from professionals. So it will take not I don't know, 10 minutes maximum to fill in that questionnaire. So that's sometime before typical Lithuanian lunch starting at the noon. The next webinar of RestartSMEs Project will be organized on May the 10th, and this time it's going to be organized by Germans and German partners of the project. And the topic will cover artificial intelligence, blockchain, and data for industry. So it's going to be very interesting webinar again. And Limpra will invite you all to join the webinar in June. Some specific data will be announced later on. So please follow all communication of Limpra, and you will get new interesting insights that will definitely help your business develop. So it was a great beginning of the day. I hope not only for myself, but all of you. As I saw that all of you went to an end during this discussion, that means that the discussion was interesting again, even if not of you were very active today. Hope seeing you in next events of Limpra. So have a nice day and have a nice day. Bye for everyone. And I ask Jesus, Gražina, and Aquila to stay with me.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.